Hello, whoever you are, wherever you are. This is one of the strangest things I've ever done in my life. Playing for people whom I can't see, can't hear. I hope you can see and hear me. And I hope there are lots of children there, because I love playing for children. But I like playing for parents as well. And cousins and aunts and uncles and dogs and cats and hamsters and things. So anyway, you're all welcome. And my name's Stephen, and I'm playing the cello. And this is a cello made by Stradivarius in 1726, which is a long time ago. So in 6 years' time, when we're through all this mad time, we're going to have a big 300th birthday party for him. And yes, sorry, he's getting shy. I shouldn't talk about him. Anyway, so I thought I'd start by playing a piece by Bach, who, if I had to choose one composer, but I don't, if I had to choose one, it would have to be Bach. And in fact, for that reason, I'm going to start with a little reading about Bach from a book called Why Beethoven Threw the Stew. It's a nice title. I wonder who wrote that. Oh, I wrote it. For Gabriel, who is behind the camera. When he was a little boy, that was originally why I wrote it. So anyway, I started about talking about Bach, about what would happen if a genie appeared to me and said, instead of giving you 3 wishes, I'm going to take away everything except one composer. And then I had to choose. So I choose Bach, and then it goes on. Now, supposing that the genie were to vanish at this point, at which I'd heave a huge sigh of relief, a thoroughly charmless object in my humble opinion, and you were to take his place, and instead of floating over my head, like the genie did, you were to place yourself squarely in front of me, fold your arms defiantly, and say, "Oh yeah, so what was so great about this Johann Sebastian Bach? And what was he like?" What would I say to that? Well, I'd probably shuffle a bit, look at my shoes, and then reply something like this. What was so great about him was his music. It is, total genius. Every note that he ever wrote sounds completely right. And he wrote some of the saddest music there is, some of the happiest music, some of the most beautiful, the most exciting. Yes, you might interrupt. A touch rude, but let it pass, let it pass. I was getting a bit boring, I know. But what was he like? I'd say carefully. I'm glad you asked me that. Well, actually, I'm not that glad you asked me that. Because the fact is that there you have me on toast. Because we really don't know what he was like. It's true. All we really know about Bach is that he was a very successful musician who had a series of jobs playing the organ in churches, giving concerts, providing music for princes, dukes, and local bigwigs, teaching young musicians and so on, just like lots of successful musicians in Germany at the time. We don't even know whether he knew he was a genius. I think he probably did. Anyway, we also know that he should have had 20 children, but unfortunately 10 of them died rather young. But anyway, he had 10 children, quite a lot. And he wrote lots of music that you can imagine these children enjoying a lot and dancing to. So I want to play you a couple of burres, which are dances by Bach. And there's a very happy extrovert one to start with. And then in the middle comes a more sad, reflective one. Well, maybe not sad. I think somebody said it's as if he's been dancing with all his children, and then he walks into another room and there's the little baby sleeping there, and he looks down at the baby and he thinks, how wonderful. And then he goes back into the first room and dances with the children. So, I hope you like it. There you are. Did you hear where it went a bit sadder? It went into the minor, as we say, or more tender, and then it came back to the major. And I'm sorry if I looked a bit distracted through that. It's because I saw somebody coming up my front path with a package, and I was sure he was going to ring the bell and ruin everything, but he hasn't yet anyway. Right. Well, as you can see, I'm in my music room where I practice. So I thought I'd maybe show you some of the photos that I have around me to inspire me as I work. My heroes. Let's start my mostly composer wall. And here in the middle is my hero of heroes, Robert Schumann. Hasn't he got a lovely face? I love his face, even if he's looking a bit doubtful. And then above him is Bach. You can see what a big wig he had. In fact, one of his sons used to call him the old wig. And there's Beethoven as a young man. And underneath Beethoven is one of my other great heroes, Gabriel Fauré, sitting with his son. And that's funny because Gabriel Fauré, my son, Gabriel, who's holding this camera, he was named Gabriel after Fauré, and so on. That's my composer and some players wall, and then going to the other wall. There is my grandfather, who was he was a famous pianist and composer. There he is as an older man, there he is as a younger man, and there's his certificate for his gold medal at the Moscow Conservatoire, because he was Russian. And there's me with my son Gabriel when he was a bit younger, and I have to admit, so was I. And there's my hero Harpo Marx of the Marx Brothers, and below Laurel and Hardy. And if you've never seen any films by the Marx Brothers or Laurel and Hardy, then your parents are not doing their job. Because you should, because they're among the best things in life. Yes, so there you are. So now I shall sit down. I think what I'll do is, I won't play very much. This won't go on for too long, you'll be pleased to know. I'll play you another piece or two. I'll play you two more pieces. And then, if you want to ask any questions, I won't see them, but Gabriel will, and he will read them out to me. And I can answer your questions from you invisible people. It's sort of an interesting feeling. This is an experiment. Anyway, were you concentrating? Not sure. But you were, that's good. Right, I think I'm going to play a piece now from Music for Children by Prokofiev. Does that make sense? And Prokofiev was another Russian who my grandfather actually knew a bit, and he was born in Russia when it was Russia, and then he had a difficult time the second half of his life, but he always wrote wonderful music, and some of it is for children, including Peter and the Wolf, which you may know. And this was originally a piano piece, but another Russian, great cellist whom I knew, Gregor Piatigorsky, he arranged it for cello. And here it is. That was Prokofiev. Sorry, the last note was a bit out of tune, but you ignore that. And anyway, I hope you like it. It's a nice bouncy piece that he wrote. Anything. He could be very sarcastic in music. He was often very, very funny. But he has everything. Wonderful composer. And yes, it was shaking my hair around. I love shaking my head around when I play. It's just one of the pleasures of playing the cello. But there are many pleasures. The feeling is great. Just the dancing bow in your hand and the feel of the left hand on the strings. It's just a wonderful feeling to play the cello and to have it there sort of, as part of oneself. And this bow is quite special too. That's horsehair there, wood, and I make it sticky with some rosin, which I'll show you. If I can find it. Rosin, which also comes from a tree. Yeah. And there. That's the rosin. I put it on like that. So lots of trees, I'm afraid, were involved in the making of this concert, but I hope it's a good use. But I think in the next piece, I'm going to put my bow down and play a piece which is just plucked. And it's from Georgia, which is Georgia, the country south of Russia, not the state in America. And the person who composed it was called Sultan Tsinsadze. And don't worry if you've never heard of him, because nobody else has either, except maybe Mrs. Tsinsadze, if she's still alive, I don't know. Anyway, it's a nice piece, and there's a plucked Georgian folk instrument called shonguri, and that's the title of this piece, shonguri. Don't want my bow falling off and breaking. That wouldn't be good live, or not live. There you are. I like that piece. Which was written for one of my great cello heroes, a Russian cellist called Daniel Shafran. Genius. Are there any questions coming through yet?
Yep, we've got a lot of questions.
Okay, let's take some questions.
Give me 1 second. The first question was from Ailu.
Ailu.
Ailu. And she said, do you have any routines or pre-concert rituals?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I sleep as long as I can the night before a concert, which isn't very much sometimes. And then I'll practice rehearse in the morning and have a big lunch with steak or lamb or something, and then take a rest, and all that steak or lamb tends to make me so exhausted that I can sometimes sleep. Then I'll get up and I'll listen to the music of the Beatles, and that gets me going again. And then I'll practice, and then in the half an hour before the concert, I'll have strong, long coffee. Also, everything's to wake me up, really. And then I'll go on stage, and I'm always miserable before I go on stage because I always think I'm going to mess everything up. And of course, sometimes I do, but sometimes I don't think. So yeah, that's my pretty unshakable routine. Everybody has their own different routine. This is the days when I used to play concerts before we were confined to our own houses, but it will come back.
Next question is from Claire. How long do you practice every day?
It varies. Not more than 4 hours, sometimes just 2 hours. It depends. I do quite a lot of work at the piano, where I learn my new pieces, sort of get to know the whole piece, not just the cello part. And so that can take several hours, and then I like to write a bit most days. So yeah, there are people who practice 8 hours a day, but I think it's usually counterproductive because I like to be relaxed when I play. It's very important.
Next question is from Vincent, age 5.
Hello, Vincent, age 5.
He says, "Hi, Stephen. Do you like playing happy or sad music more?"
Well, I love to play both, and I've only played happy music really today. But I do love to play sad music. It's a good question, actually. Maybe I will play a slightly sad piece before we go, because music has everything. Music can make you as happy. I don't like playing depressing music, but there's a big difference between sad and depressing in music. No great music ever really depresses me, or very little. Because it's so beautiful that it's not depressing. It makes you glad to be alive, even if it's sad or even tragic. One more?
There's a young Joanna, who is almost 3, is asking Pal, her father, I think, if Stephen's cello has a name.
Yes, good question again. It's called the Marquis de Couberon, because that was a French aristocrat who owned it at one point. So that's his name. But I think of him more because there was a great cellist whom I knew very well called Zara Nelsova, who played this cello for the whole of her life. And it's quite sad, actually, that I visited her in her final illness a couple of times in New York, and there was the cello next to her on the bed. Of course, at that point, I didn't know I would be playing this cello, which belongs to the Royal Academy of Music in London. But and also, once I was at my favourite place in the world, which is Prussia Cove in Cornwall, and Zara Nelsova was there, and she played her cello, and my best friend, David, turned to me when she'd finished and said, "That's the cello for you." This must be at least 20 years ago. And here he is, with me, my great friend. And maybe I'll play it. In light of that question about happy and sad music, I hope you don't mind if I play a piece which is a bit slower and a bit sadder. It actually wasn't meant to be a sad piece when it was first written or sung. It's actually a Christmas carol saying how happy the birds are, how happily they sing that it's Christmas Day. But somehow it's now more known as a cello piece, and it's become quite sad. And another of my very, very favourite cellists of all time, Pablo Casals, used to play it a lot. And it was so touching when he played it, but sad. So here it is. It's a piece, and this is a solo cello arrangement by my friend Sally Beamish. And it's slow and sad, but I think it's very beautiful. I hope you like it. Well, I hope you like that. I like it. It's a very beautiful melody and accompaniment. Right, any more questions?
Lots more questions.
Lots more questions. That's exciting. It's very nice to meet you all, even though I'm not sort of meeting you all.
The next one is, how old were you when you started playing the cello? From Joshua and Chiara.
Chiara,
Sorry.
probably. Hello, Joshua and Chiara. I was 6, which I think is quite a good age to start. But unfortunately, my first lessons, I went and I thought it was so funny to go like this. And that's all I would do. So they made me stop. They said, you can't have any more lessons because you're not old enough. And that must have made a big impression because I still remember lying on the floor and crying. So when they took me back for my next lesson, some weeks or months later, I was going to take it seriously. And I must say, well, I didn't want to practice. And what child wants to practice? Very few children want to practice. I didn't want to practice, and my parents made me. And they used to say, someday you'll thank us for this. And it's very annoying because they were right. And I actually do thank them for it now. Because you have to practice a bit regularly. So, well, it depends how seriously you want to take it. But if I hadn't practiced then, I wouldn't be a cellist today. Another question?
Another question from Alice Neary.
Alice Neary? I know her. Hello, Alice Farry.
What's your favourite piece by Bach?
Oh, St. Matthew Passion, maybe? I could demonstrate, but it takes 3 hours or so. So I think the St. Matthew Passion is a great, great, great masterpiece. But I don't know a bad piece by Bach. He's extraordinary. He's like the god of music somehow.
2 questions about practice from Hannah.
Hello, Hannah.
What sort of warm-ups and scales do you do? And do you ever not feel like practicing? So how do you motivate yourself when you don't feel like it?
I start with the whole routine that takes about 10 minutes. Starts with a D minor scale. Don't know if any of you know the film Spinal Tap, but one of the characters in that says that D minor is a key that makes people weep instantly. Doesn't make me weep, but I like to start with it, and then I've got some exercises I do, and then I do all the scales, and the whole thing takes me about 10 minutes. And then I'm warmed up. And do I ever not? Yeah, of course, sometimes I feel like not practicing, but usually I make sure that I have a goal, that I have to practice. I've got a concert coming up. I mean, now at the moment, it's not quite like that, but still, I'm giving myself goals. And if I know I've got these goals, I've got these deadlines I've got to meet, then I've got to practice. And then I enjoy it, actually. I like practicing. Basically, I'm not excited about practicing, but it's a pleasant thing, and it's a great way to get away from the rest of the world. Any more?
Next one from Christopher, who's 12.
Hello, Christopher.
What do you think about when you're about to perform? And are you nervous? You already kind of answered that.
Mm-hmm.
And what images do you have when you're performing Bach?
Ooh, that's a very interesting question. So, what do I think about before? Usually I think I wish I'd never been born if I'm nervous enough. I don't really mean it, but I do tend to walk around backstage lamenting the fact that my parents had me, but I don't mean it. I'm just nervous. I think musicians who aren't nervous usually aren't very interesting. If I see somebody come on stage all confident and swaggering, I think, they don't know what a responsibility it is to play this music. And then, what images do I have? Well, I gave you some dancing, a lot of dancing. But in the Bach cello suites, I really, I'm not Christian myself, I'm Jewish in fact, but I really think of the life of Christ, because I think that's what the cello suites are about. But also I think a lot about the dances, because the cello suites are dance suites and they're different dances, so I think about that. The different dances and the different moods more than particular images, generally. Another one?
Yeah, from Jonah, aged 11.
Hello.
How many times do you have to practice some of these pieces exactly?
I don't know. I've been playing some pieces. Oh God, I've been playing some pieces for almost 50 years. That's a horrible thought. Makes me feel old. I guess because I am. I keep practicing. Even the pieces I know best, like for instance the concertos I played most are probably Schumann and Haydn C major. I practice them for hours and hours and hours before the first rehearsal of a new performance, because that's, funnily enough, it's the way to keep them fresh. If I just sat down and just trotted out the old way I've always played it, it would get stale very quickly. But if you practice a piece, great music says something different to you every day, every time you play it. So I'm always looking for those new messages. It's very important to keep practicing.
Similar question from Petra, age 10.
Hello, Petra.
How many concerts have you ever played?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose for the last 30 years or something, I've been doing between 80 and 100 a year, I suppose. You can work that out, and I did quite a few before that. I don't know, I never count. It's a scary thought. But it doesn't, funnily enough, it doesn't make you less nervous. It should do, but it doesn't. But that's life. As I say, you've got to be nervous, really. All right, shall I play one more piece? I think it's probably almost been long now. Oh,
maybe one more question.
One more question, Gabriel says, and he's the boss.
From Edward, age 7.
Edward, age 7, hello.
What inspired you to play the cello?
Well, I came from a very musical family because, as I said, my grandfather was a famous pianist and composer, and then my father was a very good, very keen amateur violinist, and my mother was a piano teacher, and my older sister Annette is a violist, and my middle sister Rachel was a violinist, and our dog sang, so they needed a cello. And that was me. That's why the cello was chosen for me, really. Thank goodness, because I think it's scientifically proven that it's the greatest instrument in the world. Gabriel's girlfriend, who's a violinist, is shaking her head, but everybody can have their illusions. All right, what shall I do? Shall I play one more piece, and then 3 more questions, and finish?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to play one more piece by another Russian, I don't know why I'm playing so many Russians today, called Kabalevsky. And actually it sort of relates to the Bach I started with, because it's called an etude in major and minor. And you can sort of hear, when it's in major, it's very happy. And when it's in minor, it's a bit more doubtful. And you can hear, I think, which one wins, as long as I don't forget how it goes. Major 1 in the end over minor. Yeah, how much sadder that sounds then. All right, 3 more questions, then I'll let you go.
Okay, pressure on me now.
Good, pressure on Gabriel, that's a good thing.
Interesting question from Kate. What would you say is the most important or inspiring thing you could say to your pupils to help them?
Kate asks what the most inspiring thing I could say to my pupils. I always say the most important thing for a musician is never to forget your love of music. I mean, it sounds obvious, but actually some people get so caught up in the career and, and everything and trying to get it all right. Don't forget why we went in this for the first, for the first reason. It wasn't for money, it wasn't for fame, hopefully. It was because we love music. And I must say, music has become more and more important to me as I've got older. I can't imagine living a day without listening to music. If, God forbid, something happened I couldn't play, I would still listen all the time. Because when you hear music from the great composers, like you're talking to the gods, or rather the gods are talking to you. And so yeah, just never ever lose your love of music.
I'm probably going to mess up this name, but Dabby?
Dabby?
Davi.
Davy, Dabby.
Dabby.
Oh, it's a nice name.
Yeah. 10 years old.
Yeah.
What's the longest piece you've ever played?
That's a good question. Might well be a famous piece by John Tavener, The Protecting Veil. That's certainly the longest piece I played without, which has not one bar of rest for cello. It's quite exhausting. He wrote me this piece in the late 80s, and I've performed it a lot. It goes on for about 42 minutes. Well, when I played it as slowly as he wanted it. And the cello is playing the whole time. It's just not a bar where it's cello and orchestra. And the orchestra has a long break in the middle, but not the cello. So yeah, that's the longest continuous playing I've ever done.
2 more questions if that's okay.
Okay, 2 more questions.
What was the first piece you ever performed in a recital from Charlie?
I think it was a piece, I remember... It's a piece by Alfred Earnshaw. I'm not sure it was in recital or in one of these ghastly competitive music festivals I was put in at the age of 7. But I played it, and it gets very fast at the end, and I liked that. And my grandmother thought I played it very well. I'm not sure anybody else did, but my grandmother was very enthusiastic.
And something that wraps it all up.
Finally, thank you very much for listening. I don't know how many of you are, where you are or anything. I guess I'll find out afterwards, but thank you.
How does it feel to perform in front of a camera instead of an audience?
Terrifying.
From Martin.
I tell you, I've been complaining all day about how nervous I am. It's so weird. And I don't know what the sound is like out of my iPhone, though at least on my iPhone, which I can see, my doggy, when I was growing up, my Dandy Dinmont Terrier, it's his picture I can see, which is comforting. And my son and his girlfriend. Nice to have them in the room. I hope it didn't sound too awful. Usually does through a phone. Yeah, but maybe this is the new concert. And I like the fact I've been playing for children. I do like playing for children, I think. I love your reactions to music because you're always honest. Sometimes that's not so good, but when you like it, that makes me very happy. That's it. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. And maybe we'll do this again some other time if I can find a pianist I can do it with. That'd be nice. Bye-bye. Keep practicing. Thank you.